I'm very risk averse. I like to make sure that any risks are pretty calculated when I do them, or it's a risk that if I lose, it doesn't particularly matter.
In most of cases, we only see the winners. We rarely see the losers, right?
It might be easier to get followers, get people's interest if you're having that big variance, because people like seeing big wins and big losses. We've got too much survivor bias in it. So the only people that are left are ones that kind of made it. But what's really happened is the ones that didn't do well, they've just gone, they've just left.
For many of these games, I'm not sure, like, who are the people that are doing the math for them?
Like when I see people on the timeline, it's obvious that most of the people in Web3 have no understanding of maths whatsoever. I just don't think the selling point of get paid while you play makes sense to as many people as the industry thinks. Personally, I think the Web3 gaming audience is cooked. Like, they've had too much easy money for not doing anything. So now there's nothing that's going to meet their expectations in terms of how much money they should get for doing something.
Gaspode is one of the rare people who can actually juggle multiple serious roles and do all of them well. He's head of marketing at Games GG, the spreadsheet brain behind Football.fun, and the person building TodayWeGame into a real gaming review and proof of gamer community. He recently launched the Look at Tomorrow podcast, and on top of that, he is consistently building his own creator brand, all while still holding a Web2 job. Gaspode, welcome to the Locked In podcast.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure to have you. So, like, you're juggling like multiple stuff. Like, in the past, was that the path that you always had in your life, or it's something that came once you joined into the Web3? Like, early when you were younger, when you started working, did you also like get one thing, get another thing, third thing, or?
So I've been in my traditional job for about 13 years at this point, and before then was university, but I always had something else kind of on the side just to be of interest. So if you went back 8 years, I did a lot of matched betting on the side. So spent a lot of time with numbers, spent a lot of time with kind of moving money around for different betting. So it's always been something on the side just to keep me entertained, I guess.
And that's how you got introduced to Web3, or?
No, my brother was working on a project. They were trying to build a game, so I came in supporting him. They decided that they needed to get into the kind of Axie guild area because it was still kind of that time when that was quite popular. And the best way to do that was to have your own guild. But the guy didn't know anyone who was the founder of the project he worked for. So loads of us just started playing Axie as a guild for him to try and get him involved into that guild scene. We were probably a bit late because by the time we did it, it was starting to come on the down, and they never really managed to bring any interest in the game or the guild system kind of into it. But it was a nice jumping off point to start with.
Yeah, then so many people got onboarded like through the Axie. It's kind of funny, And it might be late for Axie, but it wasn't late for Web3, right? So you kind of hit that.
Yeah, it was quite a good spot because I wasn't good at Axie. I'm still not good at Axie, but I started streaming because then people told you how to play. So essentially, I was just getting coached by people who were watching on Twitch but weren't able to play themselves. And from there, I just saw that no one really covered any other games. And there was no like Twitter Spaces back then. There was nothing like that around gaming. So I saw a chance to be able to talk about more games while no one was particularly doing it.
Yeah, and the thing that you mentioned, like regarding like working with numbers and stuff like that, do you prefer, like in Web3 we have a lot of games that are like kind of math based and like min-maxing. For example, I realize I like math in general, but I don't like it in the gaming. Do you feel the same way or the opposite?
It depends what I'm doing. A lot of the games I used to play online, like Travian and such, there were so many different spreadsheets that we used to coordinate amongst people, and I really enjoyed that. These days, because I do so much maths just all the time anyway, it is more about switching my brain off, playing World of Warcraft or Battlefield 6 at the moment, kind of just spray and pray, not the same kind of min-maxing that I used to be kind of involved with.
Interesting. Yeah, I wanna like go stick to this. Like, many people are like saying that they're doing a lot, while actually in reality often it's not like that. If you look realistically, and the perception of the people there is completely different. Like, I realize, like, you mentioned like few times to me that you're still keeping your Web2 job. Like, do you feel like, what's the main reason for that? Is it because you like to have like multiple income streams? Is it like because you feel Web3 still hasn't matured enough for you to like be fully onto Web3? What's the thinking behind it?
I'm very risk averse. I like to make sure that any risks are pretty calculated when I do them, or it's a risk that if I lose, it doesn't particularly matter. And I think the idea of jumping fully into Web3 is just too much of a risk for me. The job I'm in, I've been there 13 years. I could easily be there another 37 and it would still be there. There wouldn't be any change to it. So having that stability helps be able to take the risks by taking on jobs within crypto. I think if I didn't have that stability, the pressure or the stress of dealing with working with a project that shuts down, or chasing people up for money, or you do a video and no one watches it, so you now worry, is someone going to watch the next video? I think there'd be too much pressure and it would take the enjoyment out of it. Everyone I've ended up kind of working with in Web3, I've always been quite upfront from the start that I'm doing it because I enjoy it, and letting them know that I don't want to let them down, but as soon as I stop enjoying it, I'll probably just stop doing it. So it's kind of being able to have that luxury of being able to say, actually, I don't enjoy this anymore. I'm just going to stop dead. And I've done that with projects. I've done that with kind of streams of content that I was doing that I just realized one day, actually, I don't like doing this. And I just stop and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I realized that about you as well, that you approach like everything like from the passion standpoint in Web3, and like if you don't like it, you're just kind of out of it. Like, do you think like that, like being risk averse help you like in the Web3 overall, or it like hindered you? Because I realized for myself personally, in some situations, obviously like it's kind of emotions and like state in life, etc., like kind of affects you. Sometimes it was like I made mistake for not being like more risk exposed. Sometimes it was really good that I wasn't risk exposed. So how do you think that affected you and the journey through the crypto?
I think it's helped. I think it's the reason that I've been able to stay here for such a long time, that I don't have that same swings. Like, I've had some big wins. Like, I had a Moonbird that sold quite well, and managed to buy some stuff for the kids in the garden. But outside of that, I've had okay wins, but at the same time, I've had okay losses. So it's less kind of swingy. There's less variance to it. And I do think I'll have missed out on some stuff. I'll be like, oh, if I'd held on to that, or if I'd moved some of that around, maybe I would have had a bigger win there. But doing the same thing in the opposite, I would have had a bigger loss kind of somewhere else. I think that it might be easier to get followers, get people's interest if you're having that big variance, because people like seeing big wins and big losses. But I think from being able to stay in it, I think having that mental fortitude is a lot harder when you're facing variance. Like I mentioned before, starting Web3, I did a lot of match betting where you're doing a lot of gambling with offers to try and make money. Some of those you'd have to go on slots and spin through $25,000 in the hope that you're up $500 later because of how the maths works out. Doing that where you lose like the full $5,000 that you put in, just too. I did that for about 6 months, and then I was like, this is too much for me. It's too high variance. And so I think with that in mind, that's the reason I've always taken quite a low variance route within Web3.
And do you think like for majority of like people in Web3, I feel like there is a lot of people here that never experience like Web2 world regular jobs that like many of them like set like super high expectations, and obviously like in most of cases we only see the winners, we rarely see the losers, right? So what's your thought on that?
Yeah, we've got too much survivor bias in it. I know loads of people who started making content when I did who have vanished and were really good, but they just weren't making money, so they went. So the only people that are left are ones that kind of made it. So anyone coming up now looking back goes, oh, all of those people were making it, all of them made loads of money, all of them started doing well. But what's really happened is the ones that didn't do well, they've just gone, they've just left. And I don't think it was even about the quality of content for some of them, because some of them did really good content. It just was never going to be financially viable for them to stay in for the full time. So they left and did something else. And so the people who stayed here are the ones that everyone ends up looking to. And I think for some of them, there was too much risk taking. So now you see people experiencing booms and busts too quickly. Like your creator either blows up or they just vanish completely.
Yeah, I feel kind of the similar way. Like in the last year, I can see, for example, on like there is some app for Twitter, like which can check like when somebody was the last active, and then using that you kind of realize how many people actually like fell off, and like the perception of stability in Web3 for people, I realize like is completely different in comparison to Web2. Like for me, I perceive like myself as stable when I have like, I don't know, 1-2 years of money to live with, right? And in crypto, like many people are like, if I have a month or two, like I'm good to go, you know, like moon is the end, right? And would you suggest like people like that more people you have like two jobs that you're kind of working in Web3? Do you think like more people should go to that route? I want to go that route more as well. So
it depends if you can do it. I think one of the benefits is I've never gone out of my way to look for any of the jobs I did. Back in early 22, I did marketing for a game, then jumped into marketing with some friends who were already doing it. So Jorge, over at the Gaming Strategist, shout out, gave me the first chance of doing kind of marketing. And it was really interesting because I went in with the same attitude of I'm doing this because I enjoy it. And they accepted that. So I did the right hours for me. I did the right kind of types of work. And then the same's happened with the two that I have now. So working at Games GG as head of marketing is very much, I'm enjoying it. I'm kind of get to set what I fancy doing. And then over at football.fun, for the most part, they just leave me alone with maths, numbers, data analytics. And that's something I enjoy. So I think it's quite hard to say to recommend to do it. I would always recommend that people who have a traditional job hold on to that job when they pick up in something in Web3. We saw far too many people like 6 months ago when things were still looking quite frothy, being really excited, hey, I've quit my traditional job, I'm now full on Web3. And now look at where we are. Like they'll be in a tough spot for how they're going to be making money. And then you've got to go back. And again, it starts eating away at you from what you've been doing. And I think it can take away the success that you've had because it's not enough to compete with it. So I probably wouldn't look at getting 2 jobs within Web3 unless you can kind of balance them quite well. I like the fact that mine are completely different because it keeps me entertained. But I would recommend if you've got a traditional job, not throwing it away. Like even if you reduce hours or something, just to keep that stability going.
And how do you like? Obviously, when you do multiple stuff, like you probably like have even more opportunities coming your way or more things like seeing in the space. How do you like gauge? This is what I wanna keep going with. This is what I should actually stop. Do you look at the metrics? Do you look from the passion side that you mentioned, or?
Not at all, just interest. Like it took ages for my manager to convince me to kill TodayWeGame because we did it for 43 weeks in my Discord where I was giving out prize money for people to review the game. And it was very transactional. They review the game, I could then use it as a YouTube video because I could then do community feedback. And that was like 50 to 100 in prizes, plus my editor doing it. So it's cost me quite a bit a week. And I never sold any of those. It was never for sponsorship or anything. Like, so I was always losing money. Not many people were watching the videos, but I really enjoyed doing it. And he managed to convince me, actually, this is probably your least productive use of your time. And I had got suddenly really busy with Football Fun and Games GG and doing content. So I was like, yeah, fair enough. And then I fell down a vibe coding rabbit hole where I could do everything I was doing in Discord on a website. And it's back. And I'm spending the same amount of money. I spent a ridiculous amount of AI credits to get the website going, and it's not returning anything at all. So it's very much, what do I enjoy doing is the North Star for all of it.
Yeah, I realized that you relaunched it recently. Like, what do you find specifically interesting in like reviewing the games?
So I've always seen myself as a game reviewer when I've done the content. I don't particularly do guides. I'm not particularly the person who is your community advocate. Like, I don't see myself as someone who's always playing the same game and you should come to me because I know what's happening with that game, because I've got a short attention span. I like the idea that I'm introducing games. So when I started out, my whole series was to do with what's your game or tell me more about your game. Introducing games was kind of like the whole theme to it. So I'd cover a game like once, maybe twice, and then I'd come back to it in a year if something new had changed. And that's what I like doing with the community review side of things, that I can introduce all those people who are playing with me to the game. I can make a video that then introduces more people to the game. But it also, they were like hounds in the Discord. If I forgot to put a game up, they were on me straight away. Like, hey, what game are we playing this week? What's the competition? And they weren't doing it out of the love of the content. They were doing it because there's a prize pool. But having that little bit of extra pressure to remind me that I should play a new game, I should review something this week, helped me stay sharp and essentially build the reputation of, if someone's played a game, Gaspode's probably played it, because I was making sure I was always playing a new game every week.
Yeah, I'm trying a lot of games, and I remember, you can see a lot of people reviewing the games, doing tier lists and this stuff, and like the only one that I could actually resonate was yours. I remember like there were some games that like weren't paying anyone, let's be real, and you rated them highly, and nobody else mentioned these games. I think I even commented on your YouTube for some of these. When you see on the Twitter, like, people rate the game, but like if the game is bad, they give it like 8, right? If the game is good, they give it 9 or 10, which is kind of funny because people don't want like to ruin the potential opportunities. Yeah, I also realized like your ethics and moral compass is like very, very high, in comparison to like almost everybody that I met in Web3. Like, do you think like the passion in conjunction with this like help you like to open the opportunities and everything where you're now?
I don't know. I think I'm a very bad networker. I don't particularly like talking to people unless it's about a specific interest, and that interests maths, games, kind of Web3. So if we're talking about a project, and I think I've said this to you in the past, I can't help but give feedback, whether it's negative, positive, whether they want to hear the feedback or not. And I think that's where a lot of it kind of came in. So the football one, Adam, the founder, lived near, and we'd meet up for a pub lunch, and we always talked about the product. Like, I don't even know if we talked about anything else a lot of the time. And so it was just giving feedback on that. With Games GG, I met them about 4 years ago, and I've always been on the peripherals, on the tangents. So every time they were doing something, I was giving them feedback. At one point, did a full audit of kind of their process designs to see what was going on, and that was before I even worked there. And I think it's that kind of interest and very hyper-focused on specific parts that people find useful. And that's always been where I've ended up getting the opportunities, because I'm not doing the soft skills. I'm not asking them how their day's been. I'm not talking about the weather. But if they want to talk about their product and what they're doing and what I think could be done better or what I think they're doing well, I think that's always been where the opportunities has come from. It's just providing feedback that I would give to anyone, whether they wanted it or not, whether they wanted to pay for it or not. I would still give the same feedback. Like I've never done a game review that was sponsored. And if I have just recently done work with a game that I've been sponsored by, I also then just didn't review the game because I didn't want it to taint the review. Like I might say I'm still trying to be fair, but who knows? Maybe I'm not. Maybe I end up not being fair because I've played it more than I would have normally, or I know more information because they've told me what's coming next, and it colors the review a bit too much. So I try and stay away from giving a review on a game that I've done a partnership with, and I wouldn't sell doing the review either.
Well, there is always a subjective element. Like it might be that you reach the point of the game, like that you stop playing just when it starts becoming repetitive, or that you stop playing just before something interesting happens, right? So it's kinda unavoidable, right? From our communication, I didn't realize like you're not talkative guy because you always like to make jokes and stuff like that. But one thing that I didn't realize, like this is actually like the first time that you kinda like try to present as like math Web3 guy. You have some title like that on X, but like you haven't. Is this the way how you would like people to know you, like in 5 years or something? Or
it's because the Web3 was always the hobby. So I'm an accountant by kind of trade, essentially always doing maths during the day. So when I was doing the game reviews, even though all the games had tokenomics and stuff to them, I couldn't be bothered trying to work it out because I just didn't want to do the same kind of thing that I do during the day. So it was kind of ignoring the maths intentionally. But then when I moved to doing some of the marketing with the gaming strategist, I ended up helping out with designing a lot of the airdrops, doing the ones for Neon Heroes, helping with the Wilder World ones. And then that's when I started really enjoying it again. I do always say that I want to do more maths related content, but I don't want people to particularly use that to help guide their decisions. Like I don't mind telling someone whether I like a game or not. I just don't want to show that an airdrop maybe isn't positive expected value, or the tokenomics doesn't make any sense, or maybe I say the tokenomics looks really good, and then someone makes their decisions based on my maths, and then the tokenomics goes to rubbish for one reason or another. I think maths to me isn't very subjective, so I would always come up with an answer that is either right or wrong. Whereas when I'm reviewing the games, I could say a game's really good. Like we've talked about games that you've liked, and I'm just like, I'm really bored. So I think I like being able to do the content around something that's more subjective, so that it's not a case of whether you're right or wrong. But I have started dabbling behind the scenes, helping games out with like more of the economy design, more of the math side of things. But I think that will always be more of a behind the scenes thing. I don't see that coming up on my timeline as much because I don't know, it's also just not as interesting. Like when I see people on the timeline, it's obvious that most of the people in Web3 have no understanding of maths whatsoever.
Yeah, I actually made some advanced spreadsheets for certain stuff, just because like often like without doing the math part, you can't perceive how it actually works. And I feel for many of these games, I'm not sure like who are the people that are doing the math for them, but I feel in many of the cases it's completely messed up. I'm not sure if that's how you feel or not.
So one thing I did.
Sorry, not just in terms of tokenomics, right? Tokenomics can be good, and like the game can fail if it's the bad game, right? But in terms of like in-game stuff, like the level progression, like and skill progression in this stuff, right? Like I was helping, with balancing Dota in the early days, for example, and like if you put 100 damage more and it's like 10-20% difference, you can see a huge difference, and like hero becoming OP, getting like instead of having, I don't know, 55% win rate, it gets to like 70% or something. All right, I feel that so many people in Web3 don't even have a sense for that.
I think I do less of balancing, I would say. My main interests are monetization, how people are monetizing, and then how people are getting the early user experience. I think a lot of games in Web3 make that early user experience, and I'm not talking about friction. I'm not talking about having to sign up with a wallet. I'm talking about they are giving stuff away for free, so they have to limit your energy or something. But they limit it in such a way that as a new user, I've not had enough time to fall in love with the game. It's not become sticky enough. So I think there's some maths going wrong. And then like loot box and gachas are really popular inside and outside of Web3 right now. And the first and only, I think, kind of review I did of gacha style content was when Big Time did their first set of chests. And it just didn't make sense. Like if you looked at the expected value, because they did tell you what was in the chest, they told you the percentage of what was going to come out of the chest, you were losing money on every spin sort of thing of these chests. And yet everyone on the timeline was going crazy about how good value they were. But they're only good value if you believe that the stuff you get out of it is eventually going to go up in price. And I think that's my main interest in the kind of math side of things, is seeing that people don't seem to understand where they're putting the money, both from a user and a game's point of view. They're just missing the mark slightly in terms of what they're trying to calculate or what they're trying to convince a user to do.
Yeah, this is the reason why I like to put things on a paper, because if you don't, it's impossible. You know, if you do 100 spins, if you don't withdraw the exact number of dollars, right, it's impossible to know what exactly you got. If you got the items, you don't know like if there is a liquidity for certain item or stuff like that, you know. And I know like the good example, I think, for people not knowing this stuff, I'm not sure whether you agree or not, but like is the XP system, which is like becoming very popular, right? And like the number of experience that people get, people would spend, I think, like 10x more money in terms of like the expected value that will be in the end.
Yeah, I think we've seen it loads, and I think that's mainly because most people are trying to beat variance. So they try and do big swings in the hope that they get above variance to start with. But the more spins they do, the closer they'll get to that kind of expected value. And I can see some merit in that. But again, it's the whole, you swing big, you could win big, but you can also lose big. And then you'd have to spin loads of times just to get closer to expected value. I think it's entertaining. People like it. Traditional games love kind of gacha, rolling that kind of thing. But I think that Web3, just as an area that's already hyper-financialized, just goes really hard on it, like really, really deep into that kind of angle. And I think that it ends up limiting their audience if it becomes a huge part of the game, because a lot of people just don't want that financial pressure of gacha in that way. Or maybe they do. A lot of them do like it. It's still quite popular in traditional games, but it's just not to the same value as what we're seeing. It's great for whales, but the everyday person, it's probably too expensive.
Yeah, and even these whales often end up losing huge amounts of money. We could also see that on X, I think, is it the Ghost or something like that? The guy lost 300k on Web3 gaming in 2025 or something, which is kind of crazy, right? And like often I remember like this is one of the ways how I joined in the Titan arena. I did calculation that if I put like 2k into it, and I did calculation if I have 55% win rate, I'll be net positive, you know, and I got 70% win rate and I lost 90% of my money, you know. So for somebody that is like inexperienced in the Web3 niche, like it's very difficult to even do accurate calculations, because you don't look at other stuff like the coin inflation, right? The depreciation, like for the people that got the airdrop who will sell, like investors and things like that. So it's very difficult. Like yeah, I want to go back like towards like you doing multiple stuff. So like when it comes to the time management, do you include some math there as well? Because I guess it's very difficult to do like so many things simultaneously? Do you have certain routine or?
Yeah, routine. I've always described myself as a sprint worker to my managers in my traditional job, that I will get a lot done in a short space of time, and then I won't do much, and then I get a lot done, and then I won't do much. And I think that fits quite well with having multiple different hats, that I know what time I'm doing kind of what task. Some of them overlap. I've got 3 screens on the go, and there's always the same windows in the same places, so that I can know about multitasking. I think I have it depends on what work I'm doing, but there's often work that I don't need to be actually doing anything. I need to be thinking about something. And while I'm thinking about it, I can get on with something else that's not occupying that same part of my brain. So I do a lot of that. I do need to keep lists. Recently has been more of a thing, like just a reminder of what tasks I should be doing, just so I don't fall down a rabbit hole. But even then, you're talking about time management with the AI and building websites. I can fall down rabbit holes for ages. Like we were talking about doing video clips of podcasts. And I was like, hey, I could probably build something that does this. And I lost loads of hours to it. And in the end, it only took me 6 minutes to do the clips myself. So I think balancing, having enough time kind of where I know that I'm going to get certain tasks done gives that flexibility when I do end up falling down a rabbit hole doing something else. And then understanding what is failure for doing it. Like if I don't do a certain thing, does it matter? Kind of helps. Like I might set up loads of tasks and then realize actually I don't have enough time anymore. But if I don't do these ones, it actually doesn't matter. It doesn't affect me in any way. It doesn't affect anyone else in any way. I can just cut those loose. I think a lot of people struggle or get burnt out when they're doing multiple things, that because they've wrote something on the to-do list, it's got to be done. It's on the to-do list. And I think looking at it and go, actually, it doesn't have to be done, and then just ticking it off without even doing it. I think that helps with the managing of multiple roles, just understanding what does need to be done and what I can just leave.
Yeah, the reason why I ask you is because I personally struggle with that. Like I also started doing lists, One of the things that I kind of realized recently, that some of like my, let's say, best thoughts are actually coming during the times when I'm free and not thinking about anything, which I very rarely, put myself at that spot. I try to put myself that I consistently work at something, but like it kind of makes it a little bit inefficient, since I also have, same as you mentioned, I have 2-3 hours where I do like more work than I do in the rest of the whole day, right? And often I feel like I'm working for the whole day and like I'm kind of not solving, and I feel like the more different stuff that I have to do, it's more difficult for me. I'm not sure if you have these problems or.
Yeah, I know. I like doing stuff that is completely disconnected from everything. So my walk to work, I use voice notes quite a lot. So I write most of my reviews as a voice note first, and then pull the voice note bits to do the script for the review or the blog for the review. I've started doing that a lot more for all the tasks I do, just taking voice notes and then transcribing them and using it. I'm even looking at getting a watch, so I can just talk to my watch, whatever task I'm doing. But even when I'm like sorting out the shed, like we got a new shed built, I'm sorting that out, moving things around. If I'm just thinking on what I'm doing in the task and then other ideas pop up, I've started to take more of an active effort to, even if it's just a short voice note of what my thought was, so that I don't forget it later on, but I then don't start work on it. I continue doing the different task. And I think that idea of, you work for 3 hours, but you're actually working all day, but you're only productive for so many of it. I think being able to realize that you're doing that and either switch on to something else or take a break and go do something actually helps with those productive hours. Like there's loads of tasks I don't want to do and they're just little bits of admin. But if I realize I've just sat down and I've been thinking I'm being productive, but I actually haven't achieved it, I think for like half an hour, I'll just start doing something else instead, just to restart the brain again. Because otherwise you just end up doom scrolling on Twitter and you don't do anything.
Yeah, that's interesting approach. Yeah, to switch the thing that you're doing. I haven't thought that way, but it's something that I struggle with. Like, regarding like from the creator standpoint, right? Like you relaunched TodayWeGame. You started the podcast. Do you think like now is a good time for the creators that are trying to break through and to double down on making the content and going through that rabbit hole?
It depends what they want to do. If they want to get rich and famous, probably not. Pick something else. Definitely don't pick gaming. Pick almost anything else. I think if people are just doing it because they want to cut their teeth, they want to show experience, then it's still worth it. Like, I've never thought that my reviews or content I'm going to get rich and famous on. It's always been more of a proof of ability, proof of knowledge, proof that, I've been in the space, I know what I'm talking about. It's meant to be leading to more of a traditional job, almost, of advisory, of actually working on something, rather than being paid for the content itself. And while I have had sponsored stuff, and I've still got sponsored stuff for content, that was never the goal. It's more been a goal of showing this is what I know. And I think that is ripe for people to show. Start putting out content just to prove you know what you're talking about. Like, it doesn't have to be predicting what's going to happen in the markets, but being able to articulate your thought about what people should be doing, how a game could progress better, what feedback could actually look like. And it's not just feedback that this game's bad, this game's good. It's what is wrong and what you could see being different, and not how you fix it, because you're probably not a game designer. But from a user's point of view, I would like it if this felt more like that. I think being able to show that you can take that view and share it in a way that is productive is worth doing. If you want to get rich and famous, just go do something else. Like, this is too much now. I think the fact that people get to 200 followers and instantly think that they deserve to be paid for some sort of content, I think that hurts them. And I think the fact that there's projects out there or methods out there that they can get paid for content really early on might seem good in the short term because they're picking up, a couple of $100 here and there. I think it makes the journey too financialized straight from the beginning, and they don't have a chance to understand just doing stuff because they wanted to. And then they never actually see the growth that they now thought. Like, I got this at 100, I'm now 2,000, but they're still getting the same pay because it was quite an early bar to getting into it. I think they've missed out on part of that journey of, like, when we started with the creators I started with back 4 or 5 years ago, no one got paid anything for ages, but everyone was still making loads of content, and they were just picking up different things, and it didn't matter if it was anything that could be monetized because no one was getting monetized anyway. So you just started doing bits and it didn't matter because no one was going to pay you in the first place.
Yeah, and I feel that often you kind of, like, if you're looking mainly from the financial standpoint, you kind of lose the passion, or you never even had it. For me, I started boosting people in League of Legends just randomly, right? And I realized that at one point I didn't lose the passion for the game, but when I realized how difficult for me is to get to the competitive level, that's when I lost the passion for the game. Like the time that it was required for me to return to the level where I was and to switch the mindset, it literally ruined it. Yeah, regarding TodayWeGame, like you mentioned that, like, making the guilds, many of the people are like looking at it also from the transactional standpoint. Like, what made you, like, so the passion made you to relaunch that, right?
Yeah, and it was always going to be transactional. I'm under no illusions that I'm going to build a game in community where everyone's doing it because they love gaming. I just don't think that's the space we're in. I think that you might get away with that in traditional gaming. Like, I know the guilds I have been in outside of Web3 has been very much about being the top people in the game. It has been about being able to just do something, achieve something within the game itself. Whereas Web3 has always been about, how do we win this airdrop? How do we get the most money from this project? How do we then start selling stuff to projects? And I think it's a bug and a feature. I think that it's a bug because it means you end up with people who are only there as long as there's progress as long as there's money, but it's also a feature because then you can do something to start making money. So I think it depends on how you go into it. That I know that as soon as I stopped doing the prizes, people stopped being in the Discord, and I wasn't surprised by that. But it's not just for my Discord. I think a lot of the Discords we see now, that if they didn't have incentives, if they didn't have giveaways, if things slow down, chatter slows down. People stop turning up. And I think going into it with my eyes open, knowing it and setting it up in a way that it's transactional, you give me feedback so I can write a review in a blog, I'll give you a prize pool. I think it makes it easier to manage. It means I don't have to do loads of stuff that is around building a strong community who all love chatting to each other. If people do, that'd be great. Like I wouldn't shut it down. Hey, stop talking. We're only here to review games. But I wouldn't go out of my way to what I'd see waste energy on something that's going to disappear. Like, so I've always kept that side of the community very transactional because I think that's what people are coming in for.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I realize like some people kind of realize that the audience is like that and they actually adopted the game. You had interview with it. I think he has insanely good understanding, you know, of these people and what they're looking for, while so many games I feel don't. Do you feel that games? This is also like for multiple games I try to give like the feedback by myself, you know. In some of the cases, it's already proven that I was right about the feedback that I gave, but in very few cases, I felt that the feedback was like valued, not valued financially, but like valued from the like perspective. At least we're gonna consider what you said to us.
I think that's a bit around the maturity on the games that are building in the space, but then also the good games in the space, or at least the ones that everyone views as the good games and the top games, have a loyal army of people who, for the most part, are bag holders who just tell you the sun is shining out of their arse, that they are brilliant. And then if anyone's critical, they're fudders. So I think being able to get that information across without it being diluted as either, wow, you're just cheering it on because you're here to make money, or wow, you hate it because you actually didn't get in early enough, makes it really difficult for projects that don't have that experience to understand where the feedback's coming from. A lot of the time they take the feedback, but they don't have the context around why the person's giving the feedback. So someone might say, hey, we should be doing this in game. And they're like, oh, actually, no, that sounds like a really good idea. But that person's only doing it because they can see their ROI go up. And it actually makes the game worse for someone who might enjoy it. And I think that missing part of understanding the context is where a lot of the games fall down. I give loads of feedback to games. I send them DMs. When I was doing the reviews, I would send it to them all the time and be like, here's the review, boom. Or even just games I start playing where there's no previous relationship, I will just cold DM them some feedback. Sometimes they get back, sometimes it's completely ignored, but I'm not expecting anything in return. I'm not expecting them to, and I don't mean financially, I'm definitely not expecting them financial, which is cold feedback. A lot of the time, I'm not even expecting them to get back to me. I'm just sending it because I'm like, this is my thoughts, here you go. And I'm off. Like I did it recently for, I managed to get into the early testing of the Glazor game that they're building at the moment with Gameloft. And I had loads of thoughts. And so I just put in a Discord ticket and sent it off to them. I actually don't remember if they even looked at it. I don't even know if they replied. But I was like, hey, these are my thoughts. I like some bits, dislike others. Here you go. And I think being able to just throw it out there and hope that it's useful to someone avoids that disappointment of the fact that it doesn't get valued, because too few projects will actually value that feedback. That I think if you're going in and expecting anyone to care, they've either had too many people saying they're brilliant, too many people saying they're terrible, or they just don't understand how to take feedback. So it's almost fire and forget. Here's my feedback, do with it what you want, and then I walk away.
Yeah, honestly, it's one of the ways how I started like gouging whether, like, I'm always saying it's very difficult to know which projects will succeed, but it's easy to identify the ones that won't, And I actually started kind of looking at these that are not taking the feedback, because like maybe you will have better feedback than me, maybe someone else will, right? But it's usually like, if you look Web3, it's usually very small teams, and it's like even when they're testing, it's very difficult like to test out everything. Obviously, when you have more people joining, they will have much better feeling for the game and how everything works. So yeah, it's also something that I realized. Regarding like creators in the space, I realized like you almost have pictures with all the creators in the space and everything. Do you think like we should kind of like collaborate more, both in terms of like creating the content, but like helping each other out, advising and this stuff?
Yes, but most people aren't bothered to, I guess. Because I do run quite a strict routine of what I want to do in terms of time, I do struggle to do anything with people that doesn't match my schedule. And for the most part, I don't want to change my schedule. I'm quite happy with it. I've tried and I have given feedback to people on their content before. I do think that it's quite difficult, because if you haven't got a proof that like I don't do what a lot of my feedback would be to people, because I'm just lazy. So I would give feedback on what they should be doing, but all they can do is, yeah, but you don't do that in your videos. You've not seen any success with your videos. And I'll be like, yeah, I haven't. Fair point. So I do think it's quite tricky around that. And I do think that people are quite sensitive to it. It is quite hard to be in a space where there is a lot of negativity towards what people do. And it's unbased. It's bateless negativity to what someone's done. And I think the role of being kind of supportive yet critical, supportive cynicism, which is kind of my whole shtick almost of, hey, I want you to do well, but you're not doing this right kind of situation. It still hurts for some people. So they struggle to take it on. And then everyone's moving at such a pace that a lot of people don't have the time to sit down and look at what someone else has been doing and trying to give that feedback.
Yeah, egos are too big, right, in the industry. Yeah, in Serbia, we often tend to say for this stuff, maybe there is not a lot of us, but we hate each other or something like that, like you give something bad, but then you add something bad again, which is kind of funny, and I feel that like I met you and few other creators which are like, I think nowadays we are kind of improving as creators from the collaboration standpoint, but I think it's still way too much PvP of like everybody trying to get their piece of a cake instead of like trying to make the cake bigger. That's how I feel about it. And yeah, this is the reason why I ask you. I also realize you go to a lot of conferences. They feel that's like better way of making the connections, because also for me, I realize like on the conferences, I like meeting people that I already know online, and that's how I feel. I realize you were to a lot. So what's your experience with that?
They are exhausting. It's a lot of meeting people, and for the most part, I don't meet new people. I meet people who I've already talked to on X. I think that probably helps if you're someone who's trying to network, you're trying to do BD, being able to build that stronger relationship of actually meeting up and chatting does help. I'm not trying to do that, so I just do it for fun. I've just enjoyed doing it. I like going and just experiencing the new bits that people are doing. My favorite still being Gamescom, because it is very games focused. I go solo. I don't walk around with anyone the whole day. I just walk around on my own.
Like
and then on the night, yeah, and then on the night I see people for like 2 hours, and then that's enough. I don't know. I think that if I was trying to build a business around content creation, going to the in real life events, meeting people, being able to make that connection, having a meal with people, not embarrassing yourself by getting drunk would be something I would advise people to do. I think it really helps. People can put a lot more trust in you to represent them and help them and kind of develop their business while developing yours if they've met you face to face. Like obviously there's some really skilled liars who you can meet face to face. They'll still scam you. But for the majority, you definitely can make a more trusted like relationship if you've met face to face. So I would recommend going for people, but it's exhausting. So if you don't like small talk, get ready for an exhausting week.
Yeah, makes sense. You're head of marketing at Games GG. I realized that you started like tackling Web2 audiences with the shorts and this stuff, besides the Web3. How is that going?
Good. I think so. I joined maybe about 4 to 6 months ago at this point, maybe 6 months actually, maybe even earlier. Might be up to 8 now. And I've not mentioned it anywhere on Twitter because I don't want to get bombarded by people. But we've been consistently looking at ways of expanding beyond just Web3 because Web3 is too much of a small niche. And the content team has done really well, covering more Web2 news, covering more Web2 games, just really working hard to bring more traffic to the website. And I think that's what we're starting to see kind of pay off now that OG recently announced how many kind of million hits we've been getting on the website, kind of what the traffic flow is looking like, how we're able to integrate different ads into that to start building as a platform, and where a lot of the traffic's coming from. So because of the style of the content we do, because of how we're reaching users, whether it's through the SEO, whether it's through the shorts, the clips, and stuff like that, it's all really tier 1 countries, to use the marketing speak. It's all kind of US, it's all into Europe. We've recently just added translation. So the whole website's translated into Portuguese, into Spanish, into French. Maybe there's another language coming. Can't remember which other language we're throwing in there. And again, that's really helped kind of boost where the audience is coming from. And I think the big question that some people will be asking is, what are you doing with that audience? Well, we're showing them different bits on the project. We're showing different bits on the platform, trying to make sure people come back for the guides. And I think that it's just such a better business model than trying to just keep going for Web3. There's so many people doing the same things within Web3, trying to be a news outlet, trying to be a questing platform, that to focus just in Web3, it's a tiny pond with loads of very hungry fish, all doing the same thing. That building into a games platform, like we're no longer, what was it before? It was something to do with Web3. It's now, the tagline's now the building the future of gaming. Like it's not to do with Web3. It is to do with just this is where you come for gaming. And I think that is more enjoyable for me. I get to interact with games that like I see other people talking about already. There's already an audience talking about them. So you get to talk about something actually people are already talking about. You're just not like shouting into an empty hole, which you can be with some of the Web3 games. And it also then means that you've just got a wider range of content you can be covering, which is just more exciting and more enjoyable.
So you reviewed the Web2 games on the website as well? I didn't saw that.
Yeah, Web2 game reviews, Web2 guides, Web2 news. We do stuff around gadgets, like I started doing articles around top kind of gaming gadgets you need, top headphones, top keyboards.
I saw that was the best performing short, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's just broadening it out to reach more of a native gaming audience is helpful, because personally I think the Web3 gaming audience is cooked. Like they've had too much easy money for not doing anything. So now there's nothing that's going to meet their expectations in terms of how much money they should get for doing something. So you need to broaden. You need to go outside of Web3 and start just reaching gamers wherever they actually are.
Yeah, I feel these expectations are set so high that now it's kind of impossible, right? To feel people satisfied about the rewards that they're getting, like both from that applies both for gamers and for creators. I realize, for people saying like doing a video for like $100-$200 is like too small for them, even like for the clip from the stream or something like that they can do in like 10-20 minutes. So it's kind of crazy where the expectations are set. Like, do you feel like this onboarding Web2 people is kind of broken at the game side, right? When people see the Web3 gaming, usually there are like bad connotations. Or do you think it's something else that's the problem? Like why we can't onboard more Web2 people towards Web3 games? Is it the
Just
quality
isn't
of the games or?
just isn't competitive enough. It just, you need to stand out in your genre, regardless if you're Web3 or not, for anyone to even care. And I think what we're seeing is that the games just don't stand out in the genre. And if the only selling point you have is that you could make some money while playing it, that doesn't reach enough people. A lot of people spend a lot of money to play games, so they don't care that they're not going to make any back. Like some people will play Clash Royale and spend thousands, tens of thousands, and they don't want to see that money again. They want to enjoy what they're doing. They want to show how good they are. And I think that's the missing piece for a lot of Web3 games, that they think everyone wants it financialized. Everyone wants to make money from playing games. That's the dream. Oh, wow, I get paid for playing games. A lot of people play games so they don't worry about money. They play to escape from the rat race. They play to escape from that financial burden. And I think that's what is missing. I think the selling point of, you could get this sword and you could sell it for $600, or you can use it in game. If I just want to escape into playing a game, and I now know I've got an asset that's worth 600, and I could either use it and it's going to help me in game, or I could sell it. Every time I'm using it in game and playing with it, that financial burden is going to be on my mind, whether I'm actively thinking about it or not. Like 600, it's, I just don't think the selling point of get paid while you play makes sense to as many people as the industry think. I think a lot of people here it makes sense because you've already come over, but I don't think it's a selling point to people who haven't already made that jump.
Yeah, I also feel that in Web3 gaming, there's so many people that actually like they never played any Web2 games. You know, like when for me it kind of brings nostalgia towards these like old titles. I remember like playing Diablo 1 in old days, you know, playing Warcraft and this stuff. And I also, you know, I actually like started playing games to kind of escape reality a little bit, you know, like you said from the joke, like Serbia is not a real country. But this is actually like how I felt for a lot of my life, you know, and I tried, you know, to escape and to enjoy my time, and I feel like gaming is like the only thing that actually gave me that, you know. So it's maybe a bit weird. Did you ever felt a similar way or no?
But that's why now when I'm not doing Web3 stuff, I'm not playing a Web3 game. I'm playing World of Warcraft. I'm playing Battlefield 6. I'm playing League of Legends, because I don't need to think, should I be making content on this? Should I be reviewing this? Should I do a guide? What would be my feedback? I do just get to switch my brain off and play. And I think that's the problem, that too many people in the Web3 are either in the industry, so we're selling to each other, so they are trying to make content, they are thinking, oh, what would I do differently? Or there just isn't enough people who would turn their brain off to be playing it. There's other things that you've always got to be thinking about. And I think they've been able to capture an audience that can just play without realizing all the stuff that's happening in the background, not having to worry about the economy side of things, not having to worry, is the project actually going to finish the game? It's just too much of a burden. Like, people just don't want that. They want to be able to just disconnect and enjoy playing. They don't have to think about a million other things that are going on.
Yeah, and I feel this also comes to the content that like the more that people make content, the less they actually play games. It honestly kind of applies to me a little bit, you know, and I feel like this is another issue for Web3 games, that it's very difficult to get people to just make the content because they like it. I know that when I go to the bathroom, I turn the TikTok on and I see tons of League of Legends clips. It's like endless loop, right? And I don't feel that, I don't see that we have that in Web3 space, right? Usually you see the clips when they're running certain campaigns, but besides that, it's very rare, and we can see it for only few games. Not sure if you agree on that.
Yeah, it's corny, but just doing it for the love of the game. Like that, just for a lot of it, it just isn't there. Like there are a few people pop up and are doing it, but it's kind of difficult to take some of it seriously because you look at what people are playing and getting really kind of falling in love with, and then you look at what the opposite side of the fence are doing in traditional gaming, and you're just like, maybe you only love it because you've not looked at what's going on. Like, I hadn't played FPSs in a while, FPS TPSs with Battlefield, and I started playing it again. I was like, these have moved on so far since I last really got into them. Like, because I'd been World of Warcraft and League of Legends for the last few years, and I just wanted to shoot something, so I thought I'd play it. And I was like, I am miles behind what a good shooter looks like. So now that I've done it, I'd probably go back and be harsher to shooters because I'm like, actually, this is what you're competing against. And it's no good saying, well, Battlefield's a huge franchise, they've got loads of money, it's really unfair comparison. Who cares if it's unfair? That is who you're competing against. Like, so yeah, you need to stand out from that.
Yeah, I remember like when I turn on something that's kind of old and what, like I'm like, oh, I want to play this title that I played in old days. You don't realize how much the gaming industry actually moved forward until you turn the game on and you're like, what is this graphics, and everything, when you remember the game, I don't know, at least in my memory, it looked way better, because we adopt fastly to the better stuff, and it's impossible to adopt to the like kind of worse one. Like one of the questions, I think you implemented that with football.fun. You implemented, like, I want to go back to the math, right? Like you set relatively high fees for the people that are selling or withdrawing. I don't remember exactly. And this is one of my theories all the time, that you kind of need, like, if you have some token that is related to the game or anything in-game currency, if you're keeping that currency in the game, it should be like 1-to-1 ratio, right? If you're withdrawing, it should be like way less. Like, I'm not sure if you have some theory of yours. I know that a lot of people actually made a lot of money at the start of football.fun. I'm not sure if you have some math theory, like how do we make the game sustainable?
So the main reason around kind of surge fees, which were for it, is that it's a trading game. You have to trade players. You should be trading players. But for a lot of it, we wanted the reason you were trading to be football related. We wanted you to be trading because actually this player hasn't been doing very well, so get rid of them. Or this player normally doesn't do very well, but they've got a really soft game coming up, so probably score well in the next weekend. So that kind of trading makes sense and plays into the game. Those people getting ruined by people who are just playing the market is difficult to make something sustainable. If you don't care about the football side, you don't care about the rewards, you can trade in a different way to someone who is trying to play for the football, is trying to play for the rewards. So the surge fees were brought in to try and balance that out a little bit. It's quite tricky to say, was it good? Was it bad? Like, it worked, it did slow some of the trading down, made some fees. Those fees again put back in now in terms of buybacks. But it is also then kind of some of the negatives that people see is that you've got your hand in the market. The game's now controlling what the market's doing a little bit more. So we have loosened off more of those as the market's matured more. But I do think that friction is actually good in some of it. I think the ability to be able to sell really quickly, which football.fun does over something that's selling NFTs, which is so rare, is good. You can move your portfolio around. But being able to move your portfolio around too quickly can have a negative impact on the ecosystem. I think there needs to be some level of friction to make it trickier for people to just exit their money. I think games try and be too smooth sometimes, and that actually helps. It's good if it's going up because then it helps, the spiral go up. But it's bad if it's coming down. It just escalates how quickly things are coming down. So I think a little bit of friction is actually a good thing because it makes people actually take more time to consider what they're doing. Like the fact that our fees would go from, at the moment, it would go 3 to 5%, only 2% difference, not huge amount really. But that's enough for someone to think, actually, if I sell this player, he's playing against someone soft next weekend, maybe I should keep him. Maybe actually rewards are coming up. The fact that other people are selling him, that means I could get more rewards next time round. So it's not to be prohibitive and stop people doing something. It's more stop and think, like, are you actually going to benefit from doing this trade? So I do think a little bit of sand in the oyster to make the pearl in terms of friction makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I feel a lot of games kind of transition towards like the gamified DeFi, right? Where there are many people that feel like, well, now there is like OpenSea airdrop running, right? And you can see certain NFTs got like flipped, like I think 10k NFTs flipped per day, and you can see literally if you use Harder Wallet as I'm using it, you literally can't move towards the yes before somebody else buys it and sells it. So like the volume is kind of insane, but it's not sustainable volume. It's again based on the speed that we mentioned. Like, and I feel that we don't want to have that in gaming. Do you feel like there's some like other things that you kind of notice in general that people and games do that are like very very bad? I feel like locking certain number of tokens for a very like long vesting schedule often I think messes up. I think having a sell-off early and then like letting the market dictate the price is kind of better. To see some of these patterns that are like math based,
I think some of
improvements.
I think some of the problems that tokens see is either they just die on entry, like we've seen, like all other gaming, or they get very exciting, like entrances. But then if it starts tailing off, like gaming moves too slowly in a lot of the cases that they can't keep that excitement going. And because people have been burned too much, it's not like when Bitcoin goes up and then comes back down, goes up, retraces, goes up, retraces. People with Bitcoin, there's not a product essentially. So they seem to have more faith that actually it will come back up again. What we've seen with a lot of games is even if they have an exciting start and they go down, that game has to keep shipping, has to keep showing that they're moving forward for people to have the trust that it's going to come back up and do a retrace and come back up. And I think that's part of the difference between games and meme coins and games and anything else in Web3, that games are held to the fact that they need to have a product and that product needs to be improving and shipping. Meme coins have no product and yet are trusted slightly more because there's no milestones or anything that they should be hitting. They just need to exist. So it's a bit of a weird thing that by having a product showing revenue, you have to keep showing revenue and keep showing growth. Whereas if you had no product, you'd probably do better because people don't understand what you're actually delivering in the first place. And I think that's something that we see when people move between the trenches to a product to going into prediction markets, is that mentality switches around with it without actually understanding what they're trying to sell you. And it's just tricky. And I think that will always be tricky. If you've actually got a real product, it's a lot easier for people to understand whether you're doing something or not. Whereas if you've got no product, you can just say things and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, one of my impressions there is like they're like, let's say, games that in my opinion like have no product and they go heavy on the marketing side, while from the other side there are games that are solid but they do zero marketing, thinking that users will just naturally find their game and play it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's just dumb. Build it and they will come is dumb. Build it and pay for marketing and they will come. Without marketing, there is no point doing it. People always hold up examples of organic marketing or people who manage to make it big without ever doing any marketing. The reason you can hold up those examples is because loads of others fail, and you will hold up the same examples everyone else does. People always say it about Fall Guys are Was it Fall Guys or Among Us? I can't remember which one, but they just suddenly blew up. Yeah, and everyone will name them as an example because loads of other games died that didn't suddenly blow up. I think not paying for marketing is worse than paying for the wrong marketing. Paying for the wrong marketing is bad because you're just wasting money, but at least trying to market. Paying for no marketing and expecting everyone just to naturally find your game, it didn't work before, and I just don't think it works now because there's so many other drains on people's attention. Like you go off and sit on the toilet and watch TikTok. Like if you're not marketing, people will just do something else. They're not going to organically find you anymore. I think there's too much noise. Everywhere's too busy. Everywhere's got something trying to vie for our attention, give us a quick dopamine hit. But if you're just like, oh, my product's so good, they'll turn up, you're just going to fail. And someone will say, well, this game didn't fail. Cool, you've got one example. But again, you're wrong. So.
Yeah, I think Supervive recently came with how it's very difficult for them to onboard new users. They have they had core community that actually played the game, but onboarding new ones was almost impossible for them. And I feel that before, like in what we spoke, like League of Legends and these games, like at that time I feel there wasn't that many titles that people were expecting, right? I remember we had like PC Computer Magazine where you have, I don't know, 15 titles or something, but that was actually like almost the exact number of like relatively good titles that were coming out, while today like you have tons of games like released every day, and I think with vibe coding and everything, like it will just go to even higher margin, right?
Yeah, it's too busy everywhere now. Like there's just too much competition, and it's not just competition from games anymore. It's anything on because they're all on the same devices. So it's whether you're watching films, TV, shorts, YouTube, you're watching music. You can see this thing happening over here. You learn this thing. You read this thing. There's too much going on that some of the big giants now, if they had to start afresh, might not have the same story they have now because they were just competing in a less busy time.
Yeah, I haven't even thought about it, but you're right. Like if you are making a game, you're not just competing with another game, you're competing with Mr. Beast video as well. Yeah, that's interesting. And mobile gaming is growing consistently year by year, right? And that trend will probably like continue even at faster rate most likely. I think it's like 52% of the market share is on mobile now. I might be wrong regarding the number, but I think it's something like that. Just one question, like for then, like we spoke like about like the escaping like the world by playing games. Like how do you handle like, I think a lot of people, especially nowadays, go through this time when people kind of disconnected. There's like it's a rough time for a lot of people. Like how do you go through these times?
Most of mine is to not talk to people. Like I look after small humans during the day. I chat to people like for work, and then when I play, I almost play solo the whole time. World of Warcraft, I would do dungeons with people. I wouldn't talk to any of them. People would ask, "Do you want to join a guild?" No, thank you. Battlefield, I don't have voice comms on. It's just me running around shooting stuff. I think for a lot of my recharge time is just me doing stuff on my own to essentially recharge. I do just absolutely overload my brain with dopamine when I'm trying to do that. So when I'm playing Battlefield, I'll have Battlefield on my front screen, and then I'll have an anime show on my other screen, and then I've probably got all my chat windows open on the other screen. So it's just an absolute onslaught of attempted dopamine hits by looking at different forms of media.
Yeah, I guess we're kind of similar there, because like whenever I realize, like the more difficult times that I have, the more likely is that I will stay awake until 6 a.m. in the morning playing games, which is kind of funny. Man, this was great. I appreciate you for joining. Love the podcast. Thank you.
No, thanks for having me on. It's been a great chat.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye, Gaspode.